Well, we can finally start our podcast because Pages is here.
Yay!
I don't know what it is, but I
Hmm.
sit here and all of a sudden she knows. She must
Yeah,
know something about like the equipment because I mean, she'll be in my lap when I'm designing sometimes here, but every time we do a
yeah.
podcast,
She
she's
likes
here.
to chat and she likes to give her opinion. So,
She's like, "This is actually my podcast." Thank you
can't
for
blame her.
coming. She never has much to say though, unless she's meowing, which is good. We don't mind the quiet. But I guess we should probably start this episode.
Let's do it.
Hi, I'm Emily, author of the Xeris Galaxy Saga, among other things.
And I'm Kristen, author of the YA rom-com It Happened at Christmas, among other things.
And we're excited to welcome you to The Margins, a podcast where we have candid conversations about the writing life, publishing, the book industry, and so much more.
And today, our candid conversation topic actually came from a question on Substack. And this comes from Megan, and she says, I'd love to hear your perspective on imposter syndrome and pushing through when you've worked hard and things don't seem to be going how you wished.
I'd say we both have had experience with that.
I definitely would say like this just like hit home and like a thousand things just ran through my head like when I saw this and I was like, oh, Emily, we should talk about this on the podcast. I think it's more than just a like blurb on Substack. So I feel that already. I don't feel like I've had like an extremely long author career. I feel like my author career probably really started 2019, maybe 2018. I mean, I've been writing all of this time, but that's like when I really started honing in and trying to go for publication. And in the short time, in this, almost 9, 8, I don't math. Anyway, in the short time, I feel like I've had some pretty highs. I signed a 3-book contract. I got an agent because of that 3-book contract. And then I signed another contract all within the first real year of being like traditionally published. But then I also had some pretty lows because of that 3-book contract. Only one book ever released, and it's now currently out of print. I had to part ways with my first agent. I also had some crazy intense editing on a book that ended up taking up all of my time, all of my brain space, made me question everything that I knew about writing or what I thought I wanted to do with writing. And then the book came out, it released, and the sales weren't that great. Honestly, there was a time about a year ago that I highly considered just giving it all up. What was the point? This goes back to a previous episode Emily and I talked about really know your why, because this is really going to help when this time of doubt hits you. And I feel like it hits every author at some point in their career. But I felt like I had done all of this work, a ton of work, and I had so little to show for it with even smaller of the desired results. The imposter syndrome was at an all-time high. I was going through major burnout. And even though I technically don't believe in writer's block, I was completely blocked. So in times like these, especially the lowest lows, how do you beat imposter syndrome? And you keep going. I think that my imposter syndrome beating is a twofold. It comes in two parts. First, I had people in my life who strongly believed in me, including my current agent, who they believed in me and wouldn't let me give up. And she knew my why, even if I questioned my why in the moment. And so because of that, she was really able to help pour into me and, okay, keep going. Okay, I understand this, but let's, keep going. I think there's something, better for you. Like, let's keep going. And then, of course, Emily, Natalie, Stephanie, my critique group, and a host of other friends who refused to let me give up based on where I was currently at. I wasn't in a great place, I was at the low, and that's not the time to just make drastic decisions like, I'm done.
Yeah, we were not going to let you give up.
It was like, okay, that's nice. I know you want to give up. That sounds great, but okay, well, keep writing. And the other thing that really helped me beat, I don't necessarily know if it helped me beat imposter syndrome or just gave me, like, reminded me of that love that I had for creating and for writing, was Neely Spencer. And the story behind Neely Spencer is basically, I can't remember if it was in between some tough edits or if I like finally turned it in and I was finally done. And I had this another opportunity that I was supposed to be working on. I think that's what it was. I had this other opportunity that I was supposed to be working on, and I would try to go and flesh this proposal out, or synopsis. It was a synopsis, and the sample chapters and write. And I would just stare at the computer, and I was like, I don't think that. I think I'm done. I think I'm broken. I think my brain is broken. And we have this typewriter that has just like floated around our house. Not literally. It just we keep moving it
Magical
around.
typewriter.
It is a magical typewriter. Because the house that we're living in was the house that my husband grew up in, and then his grandparents lived here for a while. And so then when we took it over, there was stuff left. And this was one of the things that was left. And I always thought, oh, that's cool. And I, just move it from place to place because eventually I'm going to play around with it, right? And so that Friday night, for whatever reason, the kids, all three of my kids were doing their own thing. And I opened up this typewriter and put a piece of paper in and just started just kind of typing. And then the opening scene of Neely Spencer started just kind of coming out, and I just typed it. And the fun thing about a typewriter is, especially the one as old as I have, it does not have a backspace. So what you put down, it's what's there. It's what's there. The other thing is that the keys are very heavy, and so you have to really concentrate on making sure you push the buttons all the way down so that the letters actually come up. It's not like, your typewriter where you can just go 79 million words a minute. And so I found myself so concentrated on making sure that my fingers hit the right key so I didn't have to backspace. And this story of this girl who was at this ball, for lack of a better term, where she was supposed to find a husband, and all she wanted to do was go on adventures. And I don't know, it fixed something in my brain and made me realize, oh, this is the magical part of writing, where you get to create something and have fun with something, and it's so low pressure. I mean, I put the pressure on myself because then I was like, I'm going to release this serially on Substack. But even with that level of pressure, it's still just so fun, and it reminded me why and to keep going. And then through that, I pushed through it and got done what I needed to get done. And then now we are here. I have another agent. I have another book contract. So yeah, I don't know if that's helpful, but that was kind of make sure that you're surrounded by people who believe in you, because they're really going to help prop you up, especially when you're doubting yourself. It kind of reminds me of Moses in the Bible. At one point he was supposed to hold his arms up, and he was so tired, and he had his, God sent people to hold his arms up so that he could continue doing the work. And so that's kind of how I see it in my brain. Make sure you're surrounded by great people. I think knowing your why is a really, really big one. And if you haven't listened to that episode that we released on knowing your why, you should go listen to it. Because for years I just thought, oh, well, that's bonkers. I want to do this because I want to make money. And as we have discussed in that's a great reason, but that can't be your why, because that one is going to ebb and flow, and it's going to make your emotions ebb and flow with it, because you're going to feel like if something flops, you're going to feel like a failure. You're going to question everything that you've ever known, and you're going to want to quit. So what about you? I know you have not quite the same, but you kind of have a similar. A little bit.
Well, as you were talking, actually, it made me think, I think a common thing between us is working on something new in order to get yourself unstuck. And I think why that works is because you're taking away the weight and the pressure of this has to succeed. Or you're, stepping out from being under a contract with something else. You can still do this while you're under contract, but It's more of like allowing yourself, your brain, to have this space to create, which is the best and most fun part, at least to me, of
Yeah.
writing. And when we lose sight of that, I think it is very easy to compare ourselves, to have imposter syndrome. Because I would say for me, back around that same ish time, a little bit before, I think, I had gone like, I'm going to say 10 rounds with a publisher. And I had had a book that is still yet to be published, which I'd like to get out actually soon. And the publisher had just acquired another book before they were talking with me. And it was not the same really, but in a same vein. So like a little time travel-y esque. And so the publisher wanted to work with me, and they said, well, give us your other ideas. And so like 13 ideas later, I still didn't have something that they were interested in. I think partly because it's hard to create that much all in a, I don't know what the word is, like in a vacuum or whatever, to do it really quickly, to do it well, and to be able to like properly convey what's in my head. That really is a proposal writing issue. That's not a me issue. I mean, it is a me issue, but like that's not a, maybe I should say it's not a them issue. It's a me issue. Because I see it and I'm like, just like, it's like the trust me, bro. Like, trust me, it's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I'll write it so it's good. But that doesn't work when you're not like Brandon Sanderson. So, just kind of facing all of those things, I ended that like back and forth with the publisher. I mean, on great terms. I love all the people who work there. But we ended it with me just being like, I really just want to write science fiction and fantasy because my ideas were all that. And that is really what shifted me when Christen and I decided to like challenge each other to write on our blogs during 2020's chaos. That's when I wrote Suspended in the Stars. And to me, like that was so life-giving. And then it's funny because like something like that was like, oh, this is so fun. And then you're on this like high, and then you get to the end of it, and you're like, what do I do with it? What's next? And so, I mean, obviously I had to like finish writing it, blah, 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 edit it, all that. But I, with much hope, but also much reality, had my agent send it out, as widely as we could, and got a lot of very nice rejections. And so it would have been easy for that to kind of send me back, right? Send me into that tailspin again of like, maybe I'll never be good enough. Maybe I'm just not, cut out for this thing or whatever. But instead, not that I didn't have those feelings, because I definitely have. I would say for me, two things happened that have helped me with imposter syndrome. The first was really recognizing that no one else can tell the stories that I want to tell in the way that I will tell them. There can be a million retellings of Beauty and the Beast, and yet we still read them because we love the story, but we love the author's take on that story. And so for me, recognizing that, comparing myself to another author who I really look up to is just disingenuous to me because I'm not that author and I will never be that author. And that is okay. That's actually a good thing because I'm going to do things my own way, which is going to be unique and fun and different. And it's so much easier to be yourself than it is to try to be somebody else. And then the second thing was just to, I say this jokingly, to take back my power. I really do mean it in like the spirit of it, not really like how like weird that sounds, but in the sense of like recognizing just because, a bunch of general market publishers turned me down didn't mean that it was a no or that the book was bad. There are cases where that is true.
Yes.
But I felt like in this case with the readership I had, the story that I had, etc., it was not the book that was bad. It was they couldn't market it
Yeah.
appropriately.
Yeah.
Totally understand that. It is hard to market. So taking back that power was me saying, well, I'm going to put it out myself. And that, where it would have been easy to let imposter syndrome kind of sneak in, I just said, you know what, the thing is I believe in this book. And it kind of circle back to part one, right? I wrote it because I'm the one who could write it. So I need to share this story. So when we think about things like that and pushing through, when you have worked so hard on something and you're facing disappointment or you're facing lack of traction, like Kristen said, rely on your friends. They can be non-writer friends too. That's totally fine. just whoever you have that's in your corner, have them remind you why you're doing what you're doing, rely on that why. And then I'm going to sound like a broken record, but you guys expect it of me now. If that book doesn't get the traction that you want and you don't feel comfortable putting it out yet, write the next book. And I know that's going to seem like kind of like a step backwards, but so often I think we've seen for indie authors and traditional authors, they have decided, okay, maybe this project isn't the right project for this time. And they go to something else, the next thing. And that's the thing, and maybe that's, maybe you have to write a couple more books before you get there. But it does feel a little like a step back, but I would say that it's always going to improve your writing to write another thing, or you can publish it and work on the next book then too.
Well, and that kind of like with my dystopian, that was the one that I originally started querying back in like 2018, 20.
Mm-hmm.
I racked up a lot of rejections. But I still have that. Like, I did put it aside. I did write the next one. It happened at Christmas. That's the one that came out. Completely different genre than dystopian. But I'm now revisiting that dystopian with what I know now. And I feel like I'm making it a stronger story because I have grown so much in those years. So just because you are putting a project away for now and working on the next book doesn't mean that you can't one day revisit that project.
Well, I have several books that I'm going to be doing that with, and it's just a thing of timing, right?
Yeah.
And the market and all of that. Well, that's a great question though, because I know that we're not the only ones who faced it. And I know that it will come back up. And that's the thing, is that it is always like comparison is always going to be something that kind of sits back there and tries to like poke at you to make you notice it. And I think every time you have to remind yourself, like Christen said, remind yourself of your why, talk to your friends, have them remind you of your why, and just keep writing.
Also, and call it out. Give it a name and call it out verbally. Like, don't let it live in your brain. I have this thing, and I don't think YouTube will block this because I'm going to quote a movie, but Silencio Bruno. If you've seen Luca, this kid, he's getting ready to do this big scary thing, and he like the entire time he's like, I don't think I can do this. There's no way that I can do this. I'm going to get hurt. And his friend's like, you have to scream Silencio Bruno. You have you have to say it. You have to say it louder and louder and louder until you believe yourself that he is silenced. And so sometimes just giving it a name and yelling out, like, you have to be quiet now. You have to, this is not the time. I don't have time to listen to you because I'm trying to get this stuff done. Sometimes that helps, just verbally speaking it out loud and getting it out of your brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I hope we answered your question, Megan. I hope that you found some use out of, all of our jibber jabber. But yeah.
Yeah, it's hard, but we can do it. You can do it. You definitely can. So we have a fun listener question that I actually pulled from something that I did yesterday, which obviously when this comes out, it will have been a while ago. But I met with a group of girls that meets locally that does it's like a Girl Scouts, but not Girl Scouts. And they were just so awesome. I kind of taught them on their creative writing elements type of thing and becoming an author and what that looks like. And one of the girls, probably about a sixth grader is my guess, asked, where do we find names and how do you pick them when writing? And now obviously I've got some crazy random names in my sci-fi stuff, but also just like contemporary. So Christen, how do you pick your names and where do you find them?
So this is like one of my favorites. And a little unknown fact about me is generally I can't really start writing a book until I have the character names, and they have to be like the perfect character names. Like they have to click in my brain. I will go, well, we have an amazing friend, Stephanie, who has the best names, always has the best names. And so,
the name queen.
She's the name queen. So, she is one of the resources that I use. Another one is I will go to Pinterest and I will just type in like baby names, girl baby names, or if I know that I want like a whimsical baby name, or if I want a contemporary or something cool, I'll just type in whatever, and it generally will pop some up. Also, real life. Keep your ears open, because there are lots of cool names out there. I found one for my sci-fi that I'm not writing, because I don't write sci-fi, but it's my idea. The main character, I actually got her name from a waitress while we were on vacation, and it's like the most unique name ever. I absolutely love it, and I was like, that is going to be the name of a book one day.
I like that.
Actually, I think I was working on it at the time, and I didn't have the name, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's my character's name. So,
very cool.
Yeah. Stephanie,
I love it.
interest
Yes,
in real life.
I follow a similar process. Stephanie is always involved. Yeah, man. I mean, we've known each other since we're like 3 years old.
We're not sharing her though, so sorry.
No. So I know her love of naming, and so it's also fun to like know that it's good for her. Like she enjoys it. It's not just like we're using her. She's like, no, please. But yeah, so definitely, because I've written so many genres so widely, and like because of being a ghostwriter, you were very like limited, because I wrote a lot of historical stuff. So I had to like look at historical names. I'm very familiar with a lot of like surname lists online, which is very helpful for contemporary writing, because you can get like what were the most popular surnames in 1890 or whatever. And then I will often look at those lists. And like you said, like the name just has to kind of speak to me. Like I just have to like it. For my sci-fi stuff, like there are name generators, and what I find is so funny is that I will often use those name generators, and they give me an idea, and then I change the idea to fit better like with what I would want. I've often met people who maybe have a very unique name, and I just kind of like find a way to shift it a little bit to make it feel a little more sci-fi. And one of the things I told the girls was that there are like ways in which you would want like your names add to your world building. So if that's a contemporary setting, it depends on the era that you're writing in, and those names need to fit in with what's going to feel good. If it, like for example, if we're writing in current 2026 and a kid is named like Henry, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a very like generic name, like Bob. Like Bob would be a very odd name for like a 10-year-old. And so you have to, not a bad name, just like it would be not normal, like not as prevalent. So there's got to be a reason. Why is there a Bob? Like what's unique about Bob? Because I think, what about Bob? No. But you know what I mean? Like that, there's got to be a reason why he has such a unique name. His parents maybe are quirky or whatever. And then the last thing was one of the girls actually mentioned, she's like, because there was a lot of writers in this group, which I thought was so fun. They'll say they'll look up the definitions of names. So maybe like, I know one of my friends, her daughter's name is Lucy, and I think it means light or light bringer or something like that. So something where maybe your name connects. Now, what I've seen, and this is just a cautionary tale, I see this mostly from young readers, is they want every name to connect with something and to mean something, and then they overplay it. So if my character's name was Lucy, and it does mean, if I'm right and it means light, I can't remember, then I'd always be referencing like, and she always brought light because she was named. Nobody really thinks that, like we're not really thinking about like Christen. I don't even know what does your name mean? Do you know?
I did until you asked me. It's actually Christen, so it means the same thing. It's like Christ bringer or
cool,
person of Christ or something, something to that effect. But
and Emily means industrious.
Nice.
But like, like we said, I have never once thought about the meaning of your name. Not because I don't care about you, but because it's just not part of our culture.
Right.
So maybe that's something in your sci-fi or fantasy world where it's a cultural thing, or, just don't overplay it, if that makes sense.
Okay, so just a follow-up question. I want to ask about Tally, like where you got Tally's name, but I'm going to caveat, where's the most interesting place you have found a character's name? For example, Neely Spencer. Neely got her name because on the inside of the typewriter that I have is a business card. And the business card was from Andy's grandfather, whose last name was Neely. And so
I love that.
That's where Neely got her name. From a business card that was inside of the, and it was just like one of those things where it's just like, okay, her name is Neely. So,
Oh, yours is so good. Mine is like grave sites.
no, that's really good too, actually. There are some pretty interesting names at grave sites. There really are.
So where I used to live in California, just like several blocks up, there was a massive like cemetery basically. And I would always walk the dogs there because it was just like a nice area to walk. So lots of looking around at gravestones. I honestly cannot tell you and cannot remember where I got Tally or Renner from. It's funny because the book I'm currently working on, which hopefully by the time this airs, it will be done. But I didn't realize. So what I'm working on now is a sci-fi, and I think I started it before Suspended in the Stars. And the reason I say that is because when I looked back, there were multiple names that I've used in Suspended in the Stars that were in that, like the very first 2 pages, which is pretty much all I wrote of that book. And Tally was one of them, but she wasn't a main character. She was actually like someone's like assistant or something like that. Delmar, who's also a character in Suspended in the Stars, his name was in there. So obviously I have to take all that out, but
I feel like we hear these cool names along the way and we kind of like tuck them in, and then we do work on a lot of projects and we're like, oh, this is great because I really like this name, and it's almost like we're trying to fit the name to the story, but it's not one that has like clicked.
And I keep a note on my phone for interesting names. I'll hear something or whatever come across. I also found some really great names or adapted names from the Bible because there's some crazy names, and I do a lot of audio Bible stuff. So I might hear them say like, this name and have no clue how they spell it. I spell it my own way, make a little change on it or whatever. But
that's a good idea too.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful.
Cool.
All right, so our final thing here is our pub tip of the week.
Yes, so our pub tip, I'm going to let Emily talk about it because I'm absolutely horrible with this particular. I'm pretty bad.
So it is when you are working on your book, and I advise doing this early on, maybe even before you begin writing, is to start with at least the high concept for your book and potentially your hook as well. So this is something that I have started to put into practice more and more as I'm writing newer books, I could say. Yes, I do love starting with an idea of just being like, I just have this, like for Suspended in the Stars, I just saw Tally suspended in the stars. Like there was like stars above her, and that's how I started the book. And maybe you need to do that to get to the feeling and the heart and the vibe of the book. But I would say once you've gotten a little ways in, take a step back and start thinking about, okay, and this is going to sound like such a bummer, but if you're writing for publication, start thinking about how you will market this book. And I actually told the girls this last night. Obviously, they're young. We're talking probably middle school to high school aged in there. And I didn't push too hard on this because I want them to have fun and explore and just create as well. But when you start to write towards publication, you have to think about how you're going to tell people about your book. And if you can't do that in a way that they connect with the book, then it's going to be harder for you. Doesn't mean you can't sell the book, but it's just going to be harder. So I like to think of, take 2 things that you can compare. Like we say for Suspended in the Stars, it's The Greatest Showman meets Star Wars. Take some, like you could do even like a tagline. I think mine is, gosh, what is it? She's hiding in the circus. He's a rogue soldier on the run. Can they save the galaxy together? I don't know. It's not that. It's better than that.
Yes, it's something. It's not quite that though.
But it tells the very big essence of the story in a nutshell. And so some people even start with their back cover copy as a blurb. And so you're not writing your whole synopsis. You're just writing a like, hey, if I gave you the like high points of this book, this is what it would be. And then take that and write the book that fits that description. This will not work for everyone. And I totally understand that. But for those who it will, I think it's going to be really helpful.
It is also really helpful too, because sometimes twofold. Sometimes you get in the weeds and you're like, wait, where's this story going? You can read your back cover copy and The second thing is it's really going to help you with like knowing how to talk about it on social media, like you said. When you have your hook, when you have your high concept, half the work is already done. So,
Well, and I think I even sent you something about this last week, or maybe it was this week. There is an author who, I mean, she sold, I don't even know, hundreds of thousands of pre-orders on her first book with a traditional publisher, but it's because she had such a snappy hook. Like she said, is this meets this? And I think there's probably another little aspect to that, but it was things that people like. It has a fandom of, like, they each have their own fandom, and she was able to just really play up with that on social media, and she has just done really well with it. Now, I'm not saying, oh, your hook is just going to sell your book, because obviously there's a lot more that goes into
but
it.
it helps. It does help.
It
does help a lot. And I mean, when you're, like Emily said, when you're talking about it or whatever, it's nice to already have it, and you don't have to think about, like, wait, what is my book? Which I have a hard time with, because I don't do my hooks or high concepts first. So,
yeah. I mean, like I said, it's not a rule, but it can be really helpful.
it just makes your life a little bit easier.
Yeah. Okay, so before we forget, because we always forget, if you are watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us. We would love it if you would give us a comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Share this with anybody who you think would be interested in learning more about writing, or the writing life, things like that. And then you can find us on Instagram at the Margins Writing, and on Substack at the Margins Writing as well. Christen, will you tell us more about what's going on our Substack?
Yeah, so we're having a lot of fun over on Substack. Daily, we are sharing notes with posts that encourage and maybe inspire. We also ask some questions, and where you can share different kinds of posts where you can share what you're working on, and which is also kind of helpful for like marketing and networking and all of that kind of stuff. Then weekly, both Emily and I are publishing our writing logs, which is basically just how we get the writing done in the midst of our very busy lives.
Or maybe how we don't get the writing done, like me this week.
both of us, neither of us are full-time authors. We're fitting writing in around our day jobs, around our puppy children and our children, and everything that goes with it. So hopefully it kind of helps readers and other writers kind of take the readers behind the scenes, give writers maybe some inspiration, some thoughts. I'm like, oh, hey, I can be doing this as well. So
I love it. Yeah. And then if you are listening on a podcast, wherever you are, we would really appreciate a rating and a review. It helps us just be seen in the algorithm. And you know what? We're just small potatoes trying to get out there and tell people about writing and our passion for just helping writers grow and feeling seen, I think, where we're at, because we're not New York Times bestselling authors. Maybe I can add a yet to the end. If we ever will be, and that's okay, but we're doing the work, and I think that that's what matters. So we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.